Greetings, folks. Carlos here. Just a heads up, before you watch this, the last of our Yuki, Yuuna, YuYuYu Season 1 dub review / retrospective. Please be aware that we have heard about the Season 2, and sometime after this video, probably within the next couple days, we will have an impressions video about that season and what's been announced so far. Also, if you're looking for our retrospective and dub review of episode 11, just go to animerave.xyz, you'll find it there. Sometimes, in order to space out copyright claims, all of them unwarranted, I assure you, and to ensure that we don't accumulate enough strikes over a given period of time to get our account taken down, I will occasionally upload anime raves to my personal account. But those will always be embedded correctly at animerave.xyz. So go there and you'll find part 11 if you haven't seen it already. With that said, please enjoy me and Dave talking at length, mostly me. I talked a lot during this episode, Jesus, about Yuki Yuuna is a Hero, episode 12, the dub, the show in general, and a bunch of other thoughts.
Dave, it all comes down to this. There are so many holes in the wall. Try as I might, I can't shove you through them. You just won't quietly go into that good night, or in this case, that fiery inferno. You will not let the vertex chomp down on your brain, like I've fantasized about for so long.
Sounds like you're just spoiled.
We'll talk about that more in a bit. This is Yuki Yuuna is a Hero, episode 12, our retrospective / dub review. I suppose we don't need to say we're about to spoil the whole series anymore, because we're on the last episode, although, yeah. If you haven't read Washiosumi Wayushadaru, or read any of the details on the upcoming continuing expanded universe materials for this franchise, some of them might get spoiled here now, but that's par for the course. We're going to swear a lot, especially me. We're going to argue a lot, especially Dave, but especially me. And we're going to see sadness and happiness and joy and sorrow and all the trappings of this show. Words.
Here we go. Teacher, why do we never fix the bridge? Why don't we just leave it like that?
Because shut your fucking face, Billy! Okay?
We do not speak of the bridge. There is no bridge. But it's right there! There is no bridge. But teacher! Bong. Take him away.
That's way harsher than just shut your fucking face, Billy. Especially since in my scenario, he wouldn't be called Billy because he's Japanese, but...
Racist. Billy. What's next? Jimmy?
Clearly,
or is it Bimmy?
It should be Bimmy. Shut your fucking mouth, Bimmy and Jammy. Yeah, Bimmy and Jammy, I love those names. Oh boy, Double Dragon Neon. Okay, so there's a little plot hole here too. As much as I love watching Yuna just run up at Togo there and just deck her to kind of knock her back to her senses, there's a slight plot hole here.
Let me guess. Where was your fairy to protect her face?
Yeah, where did her fairy stop the hit? I saw some fan art some Japanese guy drew where that exact thing happened, and obviously that led to a very different result. So why didn't the fairy stop that hit? Like,
maybe what I said earlier in episode 11 might actually be the fact. They can't force them to turn back once they're already turned like that due to emotional issues. And maybe the fairies literally didn't react because right now they're off for her.
Yeah, no, that's not true. The fairy reacted when Fu's sword was about to connect with her face. It reacted last episode. The egg stopped it. Giant plot hole. Fairy's still there. Also, and again, this might have been due to the sub we originally watched it, which was a fan sub. But I liked some of the lines there better than I liked some of these English lines. Specifically, she said, "Time for us to disappear," which is more of a kind of a statement that it's the hero's time is over. Okay, I get that. I like the original. I like the line of "let's disappear together" better because it makes it more personal with her and Yuna. But okay, I can accept that. What I didn't like at all, is that when Yuna's trying to tell Togo to stop, and you see Togo's face like she's shuddering and she yells, she cuts Yuna off. The fan sub we watched originally, she yelled out, "Who cares about anyone else?" And even her Japanese voice, she yelled something very substantial there. I'm not sure what the exact translation is, because even official subs aren't always great, right? Like, she yelled something with a lot of intensity, and here she kind of just yelled some philosophical bullshit about how, since she can't protect people close to her, she can't protect anyone. And I think that's a little too broad for what Togo's feeling right now. She's doing what she's doing because she is worried, sick, and scared shitless for her closest friends and for Yuna specifically. So all of her nationalistic tendencies, all of her do what's best for everyone, this whole theme around her is off right now. That is not a concern, because priority 1 is Yuna, priority 2 is the rest of her friends. And right now those 2 priorities are in danger and threatened, and she is scared shitless for them both. So for her to say, and I don't know if this is a translation issue, we could look at the official sub, but it's probably going to agree more with what the dub said, because it's by Ponycan, right? I don't know. I don't know if what the fan sub did earlier was more accurate. I want to think so because of the intensity with which Japanese Togo delivered her line. But I don't like that they changed. I don't like this take on it, let's say. It doesn't have as much weight. Isn't that touching? Well, sup, bitches, I just got this even bigger son now. Stop this. Really touching, though. Really touching. I was crying there for a second, seriously. I'm going to destroy your world, but listen, I just want you to know that for this one moment, I understand your plight. Okay, die now! I wish the Vertex could talk.
I'm glad they don't. Quiet, Foo.
So these were questions I had when we first watched them, and maybe I'll ask them again. Number 1, and this is another the Vertex are fucking stupid moment. Why did it shoot its core?
It shot itself.
Yeah, why? Why did it blanka ball itself at the thing? Why didn't it just shoot it from a distance as it proved it can do?
This one was quite a bit larger and more powerful. Maybe to achieve that amount of fusion, it needed to shoot itself.
Okay, fair enough. Good answer. Secondly, what happened?
There's no answers for that. There's lots of theories.
Was the show trying to say that the real danger that humanity presents to the Vertex and to presumably the evil gods that created them, or the good gods that turned evil, Sargeras, is that human touch is fatal to them? Does that mean at any point any of them could have just taken their glove off and just touched the Vertex core and it would have just fucking exploded? Or was the idea that Yuna's punch on the outside was the thing that kind of weakened it, much like how Vegeta hit Cell, and then the other girls kind of powered through at that point?
It could be that her touching it was enough to do it in human form, because, never had happened before in the show.
Mm-hmm.
It could have also been that it's answered later on in the light novels. Because for all we know, she may have helped herself.
Maybe.
We don't know. That led us to a lot of different conclusions at the end of the sub.
Mm-hmm.
We have no answers even yet, still. I also still find it weird that out of the 5 of them, Yuna was the only one who didn't actually have any of the flower petals fall on her.
Yeah, this is the thing, and especially with this Yuna lookalike in the Nogi Wakaba light novel, Yuna Takashima or whatever it is, who apparently is actually Yuna from the future because they read Wakaba's journals and she passes out and she appears in the past or something. I'm not sure. Maybe someone who actually reads them or gets to reading them can explain it to us. Yuna... There's more to Yuna than we know, I think.
Because she didn't have any flower petals on her in that scene.
Mm-hmm.
She also didn't have her fairy above her.
Mm-hmm.
All the others did.
Yeah, it's entirely possible that that Yuna is... that this entity known as Yuna can appear throughout time when needed. That was one theory I saw in a couple areas that say that maybe Yuna herself is one of the gods and she appears in human form to assist when needed at various times in history. It's an interesting theory.
I guess we'll find out eventually, maybe.
Eventually, maybe. That's probably correct.
Yep.
Eventually, maybe.
And to the Shinju-sama, fuck you! And salute! Just middle fingers from all three of them.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what it would get from me.
And salute! Boom! I don't think any of the Shinju-sama,
Yeah.
Shrines would survive once I was done.
You need to leave some alive, because that's where they get ported back when they're done fighting.
So, what you're saying is I destroy all the shrines. Fuck it.
I would build one on my roof above my bed so that after a fight I can just go right to sleep.
Of course you would.
Appear in bed.
Of course you would.
It's practical.
And as we all know, that wouldn't be possible.
Yeah, I realize, but maybe when the Shinju-sama takes, they're not atrophying it or whatever. I don't care.
Yeah.
Another giant plot hole. I do like that she isn't up and walking right away.
Mm-hmm.
It takes time for them to recover. This is another issue a lot of people had with the show, and this is one that I think is a little overplayed. This is one that I think people are overreacting a little bit to it, but I get why. Originally, I saw Yuki Yuna heralded as progressive because we had a disabled hero as part of the cast, and not only was Togo disabled, she kicked loads and loads of ass despite that. Is it cheapened somewhat that she is not by the end of the series, because it turns out her disability was plot related, let's say. Was because as Washi Osumi, she went mankai and lost her legs and her memories. The memory loss, that's a little more philosophical, like targeted amnesia, like this is kind of an iffy topic and not really a thing unless she's suffering really early onset Alzheimer's.
Except that targeted amnesia is a recognized actual condition where you can actually lose the knowledge of a certain thing or a certain person completely.
Sure.
That is a acknowledged fact.
Sure, but
I've got no problem with that.
Sure, but not the way the show presents it. Not the way the show presents it. The way the show presents it is that she
lost a few years of her memory.
She lost 2 years of her life, and yeah, there is stuff like short-term and long-term memory loss, and we know this is true. Fucking Mick Foley suffers this as a result of his wrestling career. I get that. Hers was very specific, but hers were plot related. Let's put it that her disabilities were plot related. They were not because she was, disabled. This was visited upon her as a price for doing the right thing.
But she was still disabled for the first 11 and a half episodes.
I know. So the argument is that, is this, like the argument people make is that, this kind of cheapens the fact that, we had this very progressive character here. And it turns out, nope, sorry, she was actually fine the whole time. And disabilities were presented as this horrible thing. Now, here's why I don't think the show was regressive here. I don't think Takahiro is specifically trying to say that disabilities are the worst thing, are worse than death. I think the idea was that repeatedly getting disabled because you were doing the right thing and doing no wrong is what's the terrible thing. Repeatedly losing your bodily facilities and your personal agency just because you are trying to do the right thing and are being forced to do the right thing in some cases, that's the terrible, horrible thing that is worse than death. And losing your most cherished memories because you tried to do the right thing, that is also the worst. That is also worse than death. That's what I think the message is. I don't think there's necessarily any specifically I don't think they're trying to target disabilities as bad. They're not trying to attack disabled people. So when people when someone says they don't like the show because it does that, I don't blame them, because it's tough to find disabled protagonists and disabled heroes and disabled heroes presented in a positive light where their disabilities are not something that their friends always bring up because they shouldn't, and this show did that well. Togo's disability was not a joke. Her friends accepted her, and she was totally as capable as any of them. And they helped her throughout her day-to-day, and as a hero, she helped them because she kicked tons of ass. Like, it was never presented negatively, which is good. But I guess, I get it. I get if someone didn't like the show because suddenly Togo can walk again. But I don't think there was any malice intended by that. But I'll have more to say about that when we talk about the themes and whatnot.
Oh, goody. I'll be coming back to this one.
I like this scene here, just because it's like the end credits scene, but with Togo and Yuna having reversed roles. And I like that. I like the role reversal there. Like Yuna always wheeled her, so when the roles are reversed, yeah, Togo's always going to wheel Yuna, right? You're going to get a backhand if you
Just
say what
friends.
I am going to backhand you now. Prepare for backhanding.
Hashtag just friends.
Hashtag I will kill you. I will kill you.
Oh, sorry. Follow up by hashtag getting a man.
Hashtag axe kick your shoulder so hard that your shoulder becomes your ass. Alright, Yuki Yuna is a hero. Retrospective / dub review is... Well, the series is done. Our retrospective / dub review is about to be done here. Dave, enlighten the people and my ears with your insight and wisdoms and unmentionables.
I think... Well, let's talk about the differences between the show in English and Japanese, as well as just the differences, period, because there were some small things changed.
Keeping in mind that when we originally watched it, it was a fan sub. So,
Well, no, I'm not talking that. I'm talking graphically. I did notice some differences.
remember,
This is the Blu-ray.
Right, and sometimes touch-ups happen, so...
Touch-ups very much happened in the show.
Okay.
Some were very little. I actually did some looking up, and they small things, but they modified a whole bunch to make it look better.
Mm-hmm.
And I noticed a bunch here and there is how the vertexes looked, how the girls looked. Some of their hairstyles didn't so much change as they were more just modified a little bit. How some of their hair looked, their faces, even how their eyes ended up being were changed a little bit. It was a nice touch up for how they did. It didn't affect how the show was, but it was a nice bonus, if you will. The tone didn't really change English to Japanese.
Japanese to English, me.
In the comparison to English to Japanese.
Oh!
The tone, some shows, the tone can actually change in how the interpretation is. This didn't really have much of a tone shift. Which is a good thing, because in Japanese, the tone was great. Myself, I liked the English dub cast to where it was only a notch or maybe two below the Japanese, but the Japanese did come out superior in much of it. I don't agree on the whole Yuna's screaming, but that is a personal thing, not a technical thing. But this was, especially for their first foray into bringing Japanese anime to North America.
Hasn't Ponycan done some before?
This was This was one of 3 they licensed all at the same time.
Okay.
So this was their first that they released in a premium format.
Mm-hmm.
And it really was a premium because it was expensive even... Who are the guys that brought out Sword Art?
I try not to think about Sword Art Online very much. I also don't know.
That's a fair answer.
Fact checking in the middle of the recording. This is the song that I'll sing while Dave does his thing. He's gonna check who released Sword Art Online.
Aniplex.
Right, Aniplex. That's what I was gonna say.
Right. Aniplex tends to release all their shows in one of the old traditional 4-episode or 5-episode disc formats for $120. This was very much that, and even the reviewers that loved the show, they were like, this is kind of pricey for their first foray into the show, and for a show that's not that well known.
It is still kind of niche.
It is very niche.
Despite its popularity in Japan and surprising popularity here.
So, I mean, I don't have a problem with having paid it. But yeah, definitely, it wasn't cheap. It didn't have the backing of a Sword Art Online kind of thing with the fan base, where they had no problem in paying for the whole set, like $700, $800.
Gross.
Yeah. On to you.
Alright, so let's talk about the Yuna screaming thing, because you keep bringing it up.
Oh, good.
Here's the problem, okay?
Let me assume the position.
Yes, and then you're going to pretend to snore. I got you. You're a
Nope.
funny guy.
Not gonna snore.
Here's the problem with being like, Yuna screams are fine. They're not. I appreciate that. No, they're not fine. They're not fine in English, because this is central to her character. Her character in Japanese just screamed crazy voice, throat crackling screams when she was throwing her punches and kicks and shit. And the English voice actor for Yuna didn't even come close to that intensity during those scenes. Outside of those scenes, she did just fine. But when the intensity mattered, when she had to scream her little head off when she was punching something, or even in the last episode there when she's calling after Karen after she's been hurt and after she's going to sacrifice herself with all the Mankais, Yuna didn't match the level of intensity that her Japanese voice actor did. Her Japanese voice actor was damn well near perfect. And it's not just the screams. It's stuff like when Karen flew off to go fight the Vertex, and then when Karen was falling back to Earth and Yuna was screaming after her. It didn't have the intensity that it needed. In the last episode, I thought it was actually worse than it was in the series, because not only did it lack the Japanese voice actor's intensity, it wasn't even that intense, period. And that was a little bit of a disappointment. Actually, I have a few issues with the dub in the last episode. And I'm not sure, again, this could have been that the fan sub we saw was wrong, and it could be that the official dub is in the wrong, and it could be that both of them are in the wrong.
Can I interject for 1 second?
Yeah.
I have found recently especially that more effort and more creativity have been put into a number of the fan subs than the traditional ones. So saying that it might be a mistranslation or a wrong interpretation, I don't really think there are wrong interpretations, don't get me wrong. But some of the fans give a much greater fuck about some of these shows than the official translators do.
Oh, sure, and there are certainly some fan subbers are wanting to do it more literally, some are willing to embellish more, and some are regressive, terrible dudes who want to take off anything that isn't heteronormative. That happens in some subs as well. And in some manga translations as well, where they'll use their own biases in the translation.
I mean...
this can happen with official subs as well, where biases come into play.
I mean, I can give an example for this one very easily. A series that we're going to be watching here soon, Cross Edge. Now, I can't buy the series out here.
Mm-hmm.
Yet.
Mm-hmm.
It actually is coming out. But there's a group called Cole who did the subtitles for them. They've done a Blu-ray version. I'm not touching their translations with the 20-foot pole, even though I want the Blu-ray version video because they did a lot of changes.
Mm-hmm.
Simply because they feel the necessity of putting in all the honorifics when there actually isn't. That's kind of an annoyance to me in a lot of cases. If it's coming out, if you're bringing it out in English,
mm-hmm.
a lot of those honorifics for certain shows don't need to be there. If they're not literally saying, Oni-sama or whatever else, then your subs shouldn't have it. These guys force it in.
Gotcha. Sure. Okay, fair enough. Somewhere there is the correct translation of this, but again, like I said in the last episode, I'm not a sub-elitist, I'm not a double-elitist. No, if you think not knowing Japanese, watching a sub is more... you're watching a more faithful version of the show, you're wrong. The only way you can watch a faithful version of anything is if you understand its language and culture. So whenever some otaku jackass talks about how subs are better than dubs, that's why I laugh at them. That said, and again, this is why you said the spoiled thing earlier, this show's Japanese voice cast spoiled me, because they were perfect, and the English voice actors were not. And for Yuna, in this last episode, I felt that quite a bit. I was actually disappointed in quite a bit of what I saw translated. Like, the seductive line Togo had about "let's disappear together" was changed to something else entirely, and then her line about how who cares about anyone else was changed to something a little more general and a little more broad in saying that how can she help others when she can't help her friends. And maybe that's more accurate, and maybe it's not, but I'll tell you what I liked more. I liked selfish Togo saying, let's disappear together, fuck everyone else, why are they doing this to us? Because here's ultimately the thing, okay, and maybe you'll disagree with this, and if you do, we have a long argument ahead of us. Nobody has the right at all to force anyone to give a shit about the fate of humanity. Nobody has that right. As an individual, within your personal agency that you have every right to have and that humanity has every right to protect, you are allowed to not give a flying fuck about that very same humanity. Nothing should be forcing anyone to act in a way that is for the betterment of humankind. This goes against personal agency to force this. You can certainly want to. You can be convinced to. You can desire it. You can convince others to do so through reasonable argument. Hell, you can pay for it. You can bargain with it. You can make it about money or about material gain. You cannot force people to care and then expect to be creating an ideal society afterwards. It doesn't work. So, in fiction that handles this well does it in a way that shows you why someone might want to force someone to care. Never frame it as the right thing, but certainly frame it as an act of desperation. An act of, frame it as, why would a good person do something terrible to another good person, right? And I'm not even talking about the sub anymore. I'm talking about a philosophical issue I have with Yuki Yuna. And this is similar, but not quite the same as the issue I had with Madoka. And always the comparisons to Madoka, I know, sorry. The Taisha, we never got a representative of the Taisha that we could relate to in the show. Originally, I said I wanted more episodes of Yuki Yuna because I wanted to see more connection with the girls, so that this Damocles' sword hanging over them had even more time to make me just fall apart inside. In that wonderful way good storytelling does, right? I wanted more episodes because I wanted to see that planned and cancelled Itsuki-Karin bonding episode. I wanted to see more episodes of them discovering just how deep this conspiracy goes, more with Sonoko. But one thing that could have been included if there were more episodes is some fucking representative of the Taisha. Some face of the Taisha that we can see the Taisha struggle with. Because if we got an indication that the Taisha knew what they were doing is wrong, but that they were doing this wrong thing, which is forcing others to sacrifice themselves for the benefit of way more people than just those sacrifices, then not only does that give the Taisha meaning, not only does it give it justification, even if horrible, but it would have given us a character, it would have given us some insight into the structure of this world. Because unlike in Madoka, these girls were not alone. There was a support structure in place, not only with each other, but with the organization managing them. As opposed to in Madoka Magica, where the girls were alone, and the only management they had was Kyubi, a monster, that the show passed as neutral, but was actually the villain, and the show would have been way better if it treated him like that, but that's a topic for when I eventually get to editing those, because I don't want to, because I hate that show so much. And I don't hate Yuki Yuna, which is why this will go up well before. But we never got that insight into the Taisha. We never got a human face, a character who we could have seen their struggle with making the girls do this. It's wrong to force people to do something for the benefit of others if they do not wish to. That is a violation of agency and bodily autonomy. But it is interesting in fiction to see what might make an otherwise good person do the bad thing of forcing someone to do so. And we never got that. What we got in the end, and what the ending tries to give us, and I don't like this, is that faith is rewarded, and that, which is not always a bad theme, but that faith was rewarded. The faith was in this terrible, corrupt organization, and it's God. Faith in that was rewarded, but there was no comeuppance on their side. And we know there won't be, because in the materials that take place after this, we have scenes like Togo talking to Sonoko, and Togo saying some line about how she's glad that Taisha could forgive her for what she did. And when I read that, I lost my shit. Why in the fuck does she have to forgive them? It's not Togo's fault she did what she did. It's the Taisha's fault for not being upfront to them about it.
Okay.
Hang on, I'm not done. And the issue here is that we got no insight into the Taisha's actions, where the show ultimately expects us to believe that they were in the right because things worked out, and that faith is rewarded because fate will eventually save the day, because all these attacks are done like they're predicted through predictions and prophecies and shit. And ultimately what Togo did was prophesized, and it ended up working out for the end and whatnot. And it cheapens the resolution of the show. It cheapens the conflict. I originally said I would like to see a sequel be about other humans from the outside who survived somehow. And now I don't think I want that. Now what I want to see a sequel do is exactly what I thought was missing. I want to see a representative from the Taisha side. Maybe it can be Karin's older brother, who we know exists in the Taisha. Maybe it can be one of their family members. It doesn't matter. Some representative on their side, so that we can see that struggle on their end, so we can humanize them a little bit, and we can turn them into this more neutral force that we know they should be and could be, unlike QB, but aren't, because the show is presenting us this visage that, things worked out and ultimately they did the right thing. I don't like that one bit. It makes it's moral whitewashing. It takes away that ambiguity that good fiction has. Those are my thoughts. Please interject away. I'll talk a little bit more about the dub after, I guess.
Okay. It's actually interesting to hear you talk about it now versus how you talked about it then. Simply because now that you have read all this other stuff from the expanded universe, your viewpoint has changed. And
as time and reflection will do.
And that's both good and that's bad.
That's not bad, but go on.
Well, I won't then.
Well, you should. But changing viewpoints are not bad. Expanding viewpoints are not bad. But please continue.
So, I know a little bit about the expanded universe, just from a little bit that you've told me.
Mm-hmm.
However, taken as its own entity, I'm glad the Taisha didn't have a human entity as their representative. In fact, that was one of the things that I loved about this show, is we had them as the main character, the girls.
Okay.
The girls as the main characters.
Mm-hmm.
We had, one or two adults talk throughout the entire thing. And that's it. This is their struggles. We didn't need a fucking Luna. We didn't need a QB. We didn't need an adult around as a mouthpiece for the Taisha. We had enough within the anime, at least, of the communication back and forth. We got through how they were communicating via the cell phones enough of how the Taisha was treating this situation. They were being treated as, fuck off. You're our foot soldiers. Go do your thing. Yeah, we will lie to you. We will tell you whatever we need you to know to do your job. and not an ounce more. We didn't need a person there for them to yell at and therefore distract from the rest of the story. We didn't need it. Now, if this was longer, let's say 18 to 24 episodes, and they were going to expand on, more encounters and maybe more disabilities they would have because of that, absolutely. Bring in a focus point for their anger, for their distress. But the disembodiment of the Taisha only having communication through those cell phones worked perfectly within the anime. Now, I didn't know that in the expanded stuff that Togo was saying, glad that they forgave me. Because I agree with you. It's not entirely her fault. The Taisha's actions drove her to what she did. She still made the decision to do them. But the driving force behind that was the Taisha and their actions. But she does have a small bit there. She still chose to do it. But she has nothing to apologize for. And yeah, it could have been Karen's brother, but it would have to be an expanded series. We had no real room within the 12 episodes to add another character. Because then it would have weakened what interactions we got between the girls and their solo experiences as well. Taisha, yeah, despicable. They're very much played as, within at least the lore of the world, as being, the good guys trying to keep the world going. But their actions are despicable. If not just because they're not explaining things. Not actually telling somebody we have information is just as bad as outright lying. Share the information. And them getting their sacrifices back, which we still, unless this has been answered in the expanded universe at least, we still don't know if that was actually a plan of the Taisha from the beginning. It still very much comes across as a reaction to the, oh crap, unless we do this, we're in trouble.
Didn't I posit this originally, that
yes,
the Taisha actually was like, oh fuck, we gotta give them back we can't do this anymore, they're gonna kill us.
Because you can theorize that if they didn't give them back their sacrifices, they'd still be heroes. And that's a problem. So, again...
Good job, guys! Give yourselves a round of applause. Discharge them now, take away their powers.
And that, to me, that's how it comes across, because this was not part of the Taisha's plan. They very much intended them all to become decrepit, bedridden heroes. That was their plan. So anybody who says, oh well, they were going to get back their bodily functions and everything else eventually, no, that was the lie. That was the false hope they were given to keep them going. Again, see what Togo did.
See, here's the thing. That would be cool, but that makes me want a face of the Taisha even more, so that we can see the good people in the Taisha tormenting themselves that they have to do this. However, I find myself agreeing with a lot of what you've said. I still don't think that you take away from our five heroes by simply having a sixth character who's our Taisha analog, especially if you have more episodes. In the 12 episodes they had, you're right. They would need to have more episodes. And if they're only going to have one more episode, I want that Itsuki Karen one we never got. Because I ship them together. I ship a lot of things. And the thing is that, yeah, and you're not wrong. It's, in a way, seeing this heartless face that the Taisha puts up is more unsettling than if we had seen them. And I guess if I look at Yuki Yuna as a hero, as a launching point for this franchise, even though it is a sequel technically to a light novel, if I look at it as that, then I can say, you know what? Okay, what these 12 episodes gave me is acceptable, provided that the next animated series, because we know Nogi Wakaba is not going to get animated, it's going to, in this franchise, some things are animes and some things are not. It's that simple. There's no adaptation. It's just the presentation for Nogi Wakaba's light novel, and maybe what comes after that will be another anime series.
I guess we can hope that the light novels are popular enough to get manga adaptations.
Manga, maybe. I don't know if we need an anime of Washio Sumi, and if they do that, I would like it to be Togo telling these stories to the rest of them, so that we get and some hints that this is after their adventures, you know. And I guess Nogi Wakaba is already doing that, so if that was an anime, I guess I'd be okay with it. But the next anime I want to see is like basically Yuki Yuna 2. I want to see after Nogi Wakaba. I want to see these girls again, because I want to see more of these characters, because I didn't see enough yet. And if there is another series, I absolutely need to have a Taisha analog in there so that I can get these things I'm missing. If another series happens and that isn't there, and it's just more of this wacky, weird Shinto belief system where faith works out and maidens are virtuous and will always get theirs unless they don't, then I'm going to have a serious problem with this franchise. But no, what you're saying is not wrong. What you're saying is ultimately rational, reasonable. Quickly about the dub, because I've been talking about it the whole time. The Japanese voice actors are perfect. The English voice actors are really, really good. If I hadn't heard the Japanese voice actors, I wouldn't have wanted to, but I did, so they spoiled me. Yuna needs to scream better. Karin and Togo, some combination of these two were the best English voice actors, and there were some places that I liked them better, even. Karin in the last episode was amazing. Amazing! And, this is a veteran voice actor. She played Sayaka in Madoka, and she did a great job there. Because I'll shit on Madoka, but I won't shit on the dub. And she's done some other roles, including one character from Sword Art. And I didn't really like Sword Art in the end, but that one character was fine. Mm-hmm. So, I mean,
she was the blacksmith, Liz.
Yeah, Liz. And she's a veteran, and she played Karin to perfection all the way. I'm going to say Karin is probably the most consistently good English voice, with Togo as a close second, and probably Itsuki as a very close third, only because of how many episodes she just doesn't have a speaking role. Honestly, no, I'm not going to shit on anyone. It's just certain things. There were certain very important areas that I needed the English voice actors to be really good in, that they weren't as good as I needed them to be. That would be my one complaint about the dub. If somehow a Yuki Yuna 2 was released in English first, I would have no complaints watching that English adaptation, although I would want to see it in Japanese after. And of course, when it comes out eventually, because we know it's going to happen, I'm going to want to see that in Japanese first, but I'll watch it in English again, because this was a good dub. I want good dubs. I just don't think it's as good as Japanese voice actors. Sorry, I know you like it more than I do in that regard. So there's not much more that needs to be said there, except that in the last episode, some of the translation issues I didn't like.
And
they made
translation issues have to be in brackets or whatever else, because we don't actually know.
The interpretation I got from the fan sub, where Togo was making it far more personal, and was making it more about her and Yuna, and even in the play at the end where Yuna was talking about as long as there's someone you love, you can come back, instead of as long as you have friends by your side. That, to me, plays up the fact that these two girls are in love with each other. Because, all jokes aside, hashtag just friends, hashtag I need this to happen, I need this, fuck you, Dave. The fact is that these two girls are in love with each other. I think this is pretty much undeniable. But the dub we were given downplayed that a bit. And any time that gets downplayed, I get suspicious. Because, unfortunately... sorry, this is an asshole thing for me to do. I should have mentioned that. I shouldn't be like a school bus driver. I apologize for that. Because unfortunately, sometimes that happens. Did you hear about the issue with that Love Live game?
Yes.
Where all of its Yuri content was washed out until a recent patch put it all back in? Mm-hmm. Because apparently in that show, the homosexuality is just under the fucking surface, right? Which is why I'll read, Dojin from it, even though I don't care about the subject matter of the show itself. That said, that's a little downplayed, and that worries me. And seeing how Takahiro treats a gay character in Akame ga Kill worries me. Because if there's a Yuki Yuna 2 and Yuna and Togo are still doing this dancing around whether or not they're romantically involved with each other thing or not, I'm going to be frustrated by that. It's going to... Because I hate ship teasing. Just out with it. Show me the relationship happen. Show me the relationship having had happened, then it didn't work out. Show me the relationship in rocky straits, that maybe there's trouble in it. Show me that it's tumultuous. Don't do this fucking will they, won't they kiss thing all the time. And especially don't make these two very obviously in love girls suddenly very heterosexual, because, you know, Japanese culture still is very homophobic, despite progress having been made in recent years. And that's a bit of an issue I have with the translation as well. Otherwise, Ponycan, good job. Dave, I'm sure you are fucking sick and tired of listening to me talk about Yuki Yuna, aren't you?
All the time. No, not really. We all have our points. And
watch now that I've completely changed what I want to happen in a new season. It totally be what I originally said, with people from the outside, and they give them devices that let them mankai without consequence, but no fairies to protect them. And they can get a fire shield from Sonic 3, so you can do a fire dash.
Just had to ruin it, didn't you?
Maybe that one won't happen. Maybe that one won't happen.
Had to ruin it.
I know, I'm sorry. Watch there be a new Yuki Yuna game by Sonic Team!
Nothing good comes from associating Sonic with anything.
No, not at all. Unless it's the English Sonic the Hedgehog official Twitter account from Sega. That guy is... Whoever runs that account is hilarious. Mm-hmm. And the Sonic Boom cartoon, which is funny as hell. There's an episode where Tails is in love with his girl, so all the other characters try to give him the worst advice. And every time they give him advice, he goes into town to talk to her. And Eggman, the running joke here, because this is totally crony stuff. Long story short, me and two friends wrote this fanfic called Cronies. It was just crazy, absurdist Sonic stuff. We were the Triple Peeps, long story. And in Sonic Boom, Eggman keeps trying to get his delivery from this UPS-style carrier, and like, you know, they're using the usual hurdles, like, the notice was on my doorknob, why can't you give it to me? Well, sir, did you bring the notice? No! Well, then I can't give you your package, you know, and every time Tails went into town, Eggman was there, and he would see Tails try some of the advice, and then it would backfire because, you know, Tails' friends are idiots, so Eggman... Every time he'd be like, and shake his head, totally judging it. And this happened 3 or 4 times. Then eventually Eggman's like, okay, I can't watch you crash and burn anymore. Tails, be yourself. Be who you are. Present yourself as you are. And she'll like you. Or she won't. It doesn't matter. And then Tails totally did. And it worked. Even though Eggman just attacked them right after. I knew it was going to happen. Eggman was his fucking savior. Fucking savior. Sonic Boom was awesome. There's one episode where these robots see this one game that's obviously a Sonic game, and they're like, what's this game for? And Tails like, oh, you run around and collect these rings. And the robots are like, it sounds pretty shitty. Like, they don't say shitty, obviously, but I'm like, this cartoon is audacious. It just doesn't care. It's funny as shit. It's funny as shit. What the fuck were we talking about? Yuki Yuna! Right. Vertex. Could Sonic beat a Vertex? Yes. Could John Cena beat a Vertex? Absolutely. I still want there one day in a sequel. Someone knocks in their Hero Club room and be like, hey, is this Hero Club? Yeah, I'm a Vertex. I humbly request asylum. Total Vertex. See, here's a spinning triangle in my heart.
And as I mentioned, it's way too much like World Destruction.
It doesn't have... Every story has been told already. It's just variants. Yuki Yuna is just darker Sailor Moon with a bit of Gurren Lagann in it. A little bit. I was very disappointed that Yuna did not yell, let's see you grit those teeth, Togo. That needed to happen, and it didn't. The dub had an opportunity here. Togo! Let's see you grit those teeth! What? Bam!
Anyway, this has been the retrospective for Yuki Yuna.
Retrospective/dub review.
And we'll be doing a couple more of these for different shows.
Like Kill la Kill, because I always need more Kill la Kill. Kill la Kill's amazing all the time. Dave, if you were going to suggest someone visit any website at all, what would it be? Dave, you are taking a suspiciously long time to answer this question.
Well, I'd tell them to go to Majir.ca.
Okay, you need
But
to
if
shut your
there's a
mouth.
second page I was going to tell them to go to, it would be carlsondaveanimerave.com.
Now, every time I tell you to plug stuff, you're like, I got nothing. You do have something. You have a domain, which you basically just use as your bookmark page.
I sure do.
But it's very public. I've linked people to be like, hey, this guy has wacky tastes like you do. Go look at his links. And they're like, oh, sweet. You probably noticed you sometimes have visitors that aren't you.
Yes, I do.
Like,
and surprisingly high amount these days.
yeah, because people are like, oh man, this guy has crappy taste like I do. I'm going to go to his link page. Yuna and Togo are in love. If you deny this, you are wrong. You are wrong.
Carlos, right now, they are just friends.
Right now...
In the future, that might change. But in the future, it might be destined for a boy.
Right now, this hatchet is going to embed itself in your brain.
But we're just friends.
We won't be when I kill you. It'll be hashtag we're just friends. Wait, what does that mean? It's a little ominous.
Oh.
CarlsDaveAnimeRave.com. That's our site. We review stuff, including inferior magical girl shows like Sailor Moon Crystal.
Oh, God.
And really good magical girl shows like Star vs. Force Wheel.
So, as an ender, what was better? Madoka or Sailor Moon Crystal?
What was better?
Yes.
Puella Magi Madoka Magica was better than Sailor Moon Crystal, if only because it was animated better, had better sound design, had, the Japanese voices were fine. We watched the dub. It had a good dub. And honestly, despite its really shittiness, its awful themes, its horrendous plot, its terrible characterizations, and its garbage, overrated everything, it was still a better show than Sailor Moon Crystal. But if you had to tie me to a chair and pry my eyes open and force me to watch something again, it would be Sailor Moon Crystal. Because at least I could stomach that.
Oh.
And I can't stomach more Madoka. I can't take that anymore.
Okay.
I will not be watching the Mammy spin-off show that's being rumored, especially since Mammy's at her best beheaded and crumpled and wilted in the Witch's Labyrinth where she fucking belongs.
And we're out.